Hi, folks. This is Rick Berswals with the Sports Affiliation, and welcome to the Give Back Show, where we try to highlight the good that people in fantasy football are doing, whether it's through charity leagues or charity events, really hoping to be able to highlight and bring greater awareness to the things that people are doing, and in the process, hopefully encourage others to do this as well. My show tonight has a very special guest, and he personifies all of the good that's in fantasy football. So I'm excited to bring on my guest, Sal Leto. And Sal's one of the real stars of our fantasy football world. So I'm really happy that I can have him come and talk to us about the stuff that he's doing. Sal, how are you doing tonight?
I'm actually feeling fantastic. It's a little cool actually in New York. It was in the 60s today for mid-June. It's pretty cool, but we're about to hit a 90-degree 6-day heat wave, maybe even longer. So we're going to get it very soon.
Well, I'm in Houston, so I'm used to 90-degree weather, but the fact that it's somehow getting up there, wow, that's pretty cool. We're going to talk more about the Scott Fish Bowl Podathon, which is the premier event in all of fantasy football. But before we get that, I thought it'd be great to let our audience get to know you a little bit more and what led you to doing the Podathon. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, like where you're from, what you do both inside fantasy football and what you do outside of fantasy football.
Yeah, so I'm a born and raised New Yorker, and I have lived, in various parts of New York, the downstate part. Hey, that's right. My drink and winks are very popular on social media. We could talk about that later. It's when you're out and about having a drink, you take a wink, and you send it out there to your friends, and it's kind of caught fire with a few people, so I like that. But yeah, I was born in Astoria, Queens, grew up on Long Island, and a little over 3 years ago, I took a job here in Brooklyn in New York. If you know anything about New York City traffic, I was traveling a round trip 5 hours a day. And I couldn't do it anymore. My youngest daughter started college and she was going away. And I realized there was no reason for me to drive to and from Long Island every night. So I came to Brooklyn 3 years ago. And I love Brooklyn. I'm very, very happy here. I have the Scott Fish Bowl Brooklyn Nets T-shirt on here, by the way, and my Brooklyn Cyclones hat. So yeah, I grew up on Long Island and I love my area. I love where I'm from, and I root for almost no New York sports teams. I do root for the Yankees, but the Yankees are my one true New York sports team. But in basketball, I grew up in the Jordan era with the Bulls, and I love Michael Jordan, my favorite athlete across any sport. In hockey, we have two New York teams in almost everything. I somehow root for the Devils. Which is my Scott Fish Bowl division, by the way. I chose the Devils because I'm not drafting live this year. And, of course, I am an Oakland, Los Angeles, Las Vegas Raiders fan. And being at my team has stunk for quite a long time. I became very involved in fantasy football as a result because there wasn't much to watch with that team. I got into fantasy football in 1994. I had a group of older cousins. I had gone to a graduation party. One of them was graduating chiropractic school. And we got to talk. And I knew them, but they were about 12 years older than me. I started telling them I was playing fantasy football in the back of the Daily News, the New York Daily News. You pick players and then you would sign in and you'd call weekly to make drop ads on them. Yeah. So they're like, well, we got a league. We got an actual league. We've been doing it for the last 2 years. You got to come join the league. So I'm like, well, this is amazing. Like I immediately, these cousins who I knew became like my closest family members because I was obsessed with fantasy football immediately. I went to the first live draft in 1994. I remember my first 3 draft picks. My girlfriend at the time, who eventually became my wife, who's now unfortunately my ex-wife, she loved Dan Marino at that time. So my very first draft pick in fantasy football history was Dan Marino. And my second round pick was Herman Moore. And my third round pick was Thurman Thomas. And boy, that was a damn good team. I competed well. It took me 4 years to win my first championship. 1998 was my first championship, and that team was stacked with players like Marshall Faulk and Marvin Harrison and Brett Favre.
Some great players.
Keyshawn Johnson, Jamal Anderson, in the big year that was the year the Falcons went to the Super Bowl, 30 birding it up. So the team was stacked. I won my championship, and it was just always fun. It was a great camaraderie in that league with my cousins and some other, and that was the South Jersey Fantasy Football League, because they were from Toms River, New Jersey. And as the years went on, and I started to expand my horizons and play in some other leagues, and it became an online thing. It started to become an early online thing. And let's just jump forward to 2015. 2015, my marriage was kind of ending. It was kind of falling apart, and I had a lot more free time. My kids were getting a little bit older. They were busy. They were social, and I found myself on the Matthew Berry Fantasy Life app, and it just come out. Yeah, it just come out in 2015, and I was like, all right, cool. I downloaded this thing, and I was on there for a couple of days, and it was a great app. And its original iteration, it was a great app. I don't love where it's become now. Matthew sold it, so it's not like I'm taking a shot at him. But in those early days, it was so great. And I saw a post on the main page. They used to be able to put posts up there and polls and all kinds of stuff like that. And it said, looking to form a 16-team league with people who know how to play, that have played before. And I was like, wow, 16-team. That sounds grueling, but I'm like, I want to do this, So I joined, and it was that gentleman's name was Steve Marcus, who eventually became one of my co-hosts on the Falafel podcast, my original venture into fantasy football. And the reason it became the Falafel podcast was we named that league, that 16-team league, the Fantasy Life App Fantasy Football League, and we called it Falafel. So not the food, but a play on the word a little bit. And we had a chat. We had what we thought was a league chat. Well, it turned out all the forums on the Fantasy Life app are open forums. Anybody could come in. So after a few days of us 16 guys who have never met before chatting in a room one morning, and we started to get to know each other and chop it up a little bit, as guys do when it comes to sports. Some guy was like, hey, I'm on my way to work, and I don't know who you guys are, but I've been following the chat all morning, and you guys have me cracking up. Keep doing whatever it is you're doing. So we were all like, what the hell is going on here? So what that chat turned into, I'll give you some highlight numbers. In 1 year, it grew to 15,000 people. Organically, wow. 15,000 people. The original creators of the app, Mark and Charlie, who were two guys who pitched this idea to Matthew Berry at a book signing for his Fantasy Life book. They gave us the statistics that for 365 days from the day we opened the doors, 24/7, we produced on average a message a minute.
Wow.
So that it was a really early time. It was late. It was this 2015 football season into the 2016 off season. And in that 2016 off season, we were like, man, maybe there's something to this. Maybe we should start writing. And we're like, maybe we should do a podcast. And now podcasts in 2015, 2016, they're not what they are now, right?
Yeah, it's a saturated market now. So,
and it was Matthew Berry. There was the fantasy footballers who were very early on in their quest. There were the football guys. Very, very few. Matt Harmon was doing backyard banter back then. He wasn't with NFL Network. He wasn't. And I say this because these were all people we met early, and these were all people that came on with us. These were all people that made us feel legitimate. And we were doing it for fun. And while we were doing it for fun, we started getting people reaching out to us to be sponsors. And we're like, whoa, wow, this is crazy. And the first one that reached out to us was the Draft app. And if you don't remember what the Draft app was, it was basically Underdog back then. In fact, the guy who created Underdog created the Draft app. And if you don't know that story, I believe it was FanDuel that bought him out, but never put a clause in there where he couldn't basically redesign the exact same app. And he waited a few years, and he did. So he got his money, created Underdog, and it might be a little more to the story, but that's essentially what it is. And when Draft reached out to us and said, hey, we want to sponsor you, so many people were doing these affiliation podcasts, call back to the sports affiliation, the affiliation podcast, affiliation sponsorships where if you used a code and somebody downloaded, you'd get like 10%. They said, no, we want to pay you money, cash money essentially per episode. We were like, what the hell is going on here? So I will tell you the number, but I will tell you that we upped the amount of times we podcasted a week because they paid us by episode. So we want to make as much money as we can. And it just like skyrocketed from there. It was 2 years of really a ton of fun. And 2 years in, we had been playing, and we had found Scott in 2016, Scott Fish, and we joined SFB 480 because if you don't know, in the early days, the Scott Fish Bowl was the amount of teams that were in the league. So at that time, it was 480 teams. It would have been Scott Fish Bowl 6, by the way, if you did it in numbers. And I said to Kevin and Steve, rather, who are my two co-hosts I met through Falafel, hey, let's join this league. It'd be great for networking, So we joined it thinking we'd meet people, and we did. We met some great people in that first year. And what I could tell you was in 2016 to 2017, when the drafts kicked off online, and back then every Scott Fish Bowl draft started at the exact same time on the exact same day, and it was the Monday after 4th of July, whatever Monday that was. And there was such a insane fervor for it on Twitter back then that it rivaled the retirement of, God, every time I tell a story, I end up forgetting this guy's name, and he's one of the greatest NBA players of all time from the Spurs, but played at Wake Forest. I can picture his entire career. I can't get Duncan.
Oh, Tim Duncan, sure.
Tim Duncan. It was Scott Fish Bowl and Tim Duncan's retirement, neck and neck, trending on Twitter that day.
Wow.
So I turned to Steve and Kevin and I said, we got to get involved in this because, first of all, we would end every show with do something for charity. It was inspired by Scott. And Scott's thing back then was donate one league fee. You got 12 people in the league, take one, donate it to something. And we used to close our show with that. And we wanted to do more. And I said to the guys, next year we should do like a 2-hour show, like when the drafts kick off. Let's do 2 hours, interview Scott, a couple other people. And it would be a lot of fun. And it was part we wanted to do charity. Part it was a little selfish because we could jump onto the popularity of that and get our name out there a little bit more, right? So it was twofold. I'll be honest about that. And over the course of the next year, I said, oh, I got an idea. Rick, there's no doubt that you and I are older than a lot of people in this business. We remember telethons on
I'm
TV.
old?
No, I know. I'm just saying. I'll show the when I got the hat off, I get Dana White. People tell me I look like Dana White all the time. So,
I'm just kidding.
So you remember telethons, and
yeah.
I was like, oh, I got an idea. Let's do a telethon style show, and we'll call it a podathon. And that's how the phrase podathon came about. Some people do credit me for that. I don't know if it was being used in a space before me, but if I'm getting credited with that, I'll take it. And I reached out to Scott, and I needed his permission to use Scott Fish Bowl, and he was so excited for it. So we called it the SFB Podathon, and it was a 24-hour live show. And the shtick would be, we're going to be up for 24 hours. That's the shtick. We're up 24 hours. We're going to get punchy. We're going to get tired. Who's going to fall asleep on screen first? And we'll just interview people. And in the first year, we begged people to come on, and we kept them on for an hour. And did we get Matthew Berry year one? We did, because Matthew was a friend immediately from the app. Mike Wright, the FF Hitman, he came on. Matt Harmon, those people, Liz Loza, people who are just killing it in the industry today, who were kind of at the beginning of their journeys back then, with the exception of Matthew. He was already established. And I thought, well, we'll raise a little bit of money and we'll try to do this every year. And maybe by year 5, this will be something. Well, in year 1, we raised $4,700, which was admirable. Year 2, it got a little bit better. We raised like $7,600. And that was the year Scott said, keep the $7,600, go shopping for toys in your town and donate those toys to Toys for Tots. So it was the first year of 2019 where I got to go shopping with my kids, which was just, I know you wrote that in the show sheet. We could get to that in a second, what that does mean to me every year. And 2020 comes and it's COVID year, and we don't know what to expect. And well, what happened? What happened in 2020? I can't quite explain it, because when I put it out there, people are like, I want to be on a show. I want to be on a show. Heath Cummings, I didn't know Heath Cummings, CBS. He reached out to me. He's the first guy to reach out to me and say, I want to be on the show. And what happened was just person after person after person after person. We now went to 30-minute segments. We now had the idea to sell sponsorships, and the sponsorships would be $100 an hour. That money would go to the charity. We
Nice.
want to get a title sponsor. I can't remember if 2020 or 2021 was when we got the title sponsorship with Trophy Smack. But that was another great year. The long and short of it is Rick, is in 2020 we raised $42,000 through the
Oh,
Podathon, and I was like, what in the world? I thought year 5 maybe we'd be something. By year 3 it exploded, and what it's become since 2020 is like the kickoff event, like the marquee kickoff event to the fantasy football season. And that's weird for me to say that, because it was my idea, and I have done it. And while Steve and Kevin have not been able to hang on with me because they're younger than me and have younger kids, and life gets in the way sometimes, we all know that, they popped back in and out. Last year we did a little reunion. But what happened is other people in the space and other people in Fantasy Cares came to my rescue to help me. And the first thing they told me was, we got to do it longer. We got to do 36 hours. I said, well, I will drop dead, right? At the time, I'm in my 40s and I'm getting older. And while I try to remain healthy, I'm like, no human is up for 36 hours talking. They're like, no, you got to relinquish a little bit of control. And I hated that idea. I'm not going to lie. I hated the idea of relinquishing a little control. But what was born out of that was so many talented people coming to the forefront. Mike Faiola, Daddy's Home, Mike, who books the guests and absolutely slays it. Bob Gilchrist and his crew of designers who create the banners and the logos and all the stuff, not to mention create all these wonderful shirts that you should go to fantasycares.com or shopfantasycares.com to check out.
including your Podathon shirt, which I saw. I think you were modeling it, or at least I think you commented on it. This is So now I need to go out and buy another shirt.
It just came
Podathon.
out. It just came out this week, and I'm excited about it. When this year's theme was sports and organizations and teams, I figured UFC would slip through the cracks. So I'm a pretty big, speaking of Dana White, I'm a pretty big UFC fan. I have watched since UFC 1. By coincidence, a family friend came over because we had the bootleg cable box back in the 90s, and I watched UFC 1 live, not knowing what it was. It is not the same event now. I mean, there's rules now. Back then, it was a legitimate tough guy type of contest, but they did fight in a cage back then. That was about the only thing that resembles that. And I went through all the shirts that Bob had up. I said, did somebody claim the UFC? And he said, no. I said, I want the Podathon shirt to be the UFC. So I gave the idea. I gave the slogan that's on the bottom. They created it. And it's awesome. I'm ordering one in every color because I love it. And I hope they have the sweatshirts out soon. So I know I rambled on for such a long time there.
No.
About myself, but
No. A couple things. And first of all, you mentioned a couple of people, other names that have been, part of the team that have put together or at least produce and deliver on this. One of the things I still laugh about it, but and I think it was Steve's chair. Steve's chair was one of the stars of the show one year, and I think it still continues to be referred to in past or current shows. But can you tell us a little bit about how that all came about?
Yeah, so what a better time on Twitter it was back then. I mean, it's a poop show now with X and all the political stuff that goes on there. But that was an era when Twitter was like the fantasy football staple, and that's how we had our community there. Now some of us are on Blue Sky. I still have my Twitter. I have my Blue Sky. Instagram has gotten a little bit more expanding, but a lot of us are just in Discord and talking over there. It doesn't have the same feel, but somebody, Steve would get up a lot to go to the bathroom and not turn his camera off. And the chair was there.
An empty chair.
Steve being the youngest guy on the show, by proxy, you get picked on when you're the youngest guy on the show, and it's always been, to know me as an I'm a really sensitive, soft guy in real life, but I always had this persona in the podcast to be like the tough, overbearing guy. So I played up to it. People liked it. People liked the New York accent. They liked the thing.
It was hilarious.
Not really who I am in real life, but I will break balls till the cows come home. So people just jumped on it. They're like, "Oh, bring the chair back, the chairs." But what was really great was during the Podathon, the Podathon chair got its own Twitter account. It was now a living, breathing entity, and it was more popular than Steve. It might have more followers till today than Steve ever had. And those are the organic things that grew out of the Podathon. The different segments. Whenever I think you have something in about most memorable moments. Any moment with Shane Manila, any moment with Shane comes on.
Sure, yeah.
You think I'm a wild card. You think you don't know what's coming out of my mouth. We had to put censored signs up. We had to make sure people put their children to bed when Shane comes on. And so, there's so many things were born out of the Podathon. And I think to an extent, the lives are kind of an extension of the Podathon, because in the beginning, we just had that space and people would come in, and the chat, much like your chat that's going on in the room right now, the chat was almost as interesting as what was going on screen. The people that would try to stay up for the full 24 hours back in the day when it was 24 hours, the comments, the camaraderie, the community, it enhanced everything. But now you have these live drafts, and 2 years ago, I drafted in New York for the first time in my home state, my hometown. And last year during the Podathon, I was like, screw it. I gotta go to some live events. I gotta go see what these are about. And they convinced me during the Podathon to show up to Cincinnati a few days later, and I did. And this week, Cincinnati is the same weekend as Vegas. This upcoming weekend, I will be in Vegas this weekend for the kickoff live red carpet and the whole ball of wax out there with Scott. I just loved that vibe of what was going on out there. And then I hit Boston because we did the gala last year. I'm the only one that says gala. It's a gala. And I actually wore a black bow tie with my Scott Fish Bowl t-shirt because it was a gala, and I don't think anybody dressed up nice enough for it except for me. Just to get out there to these events and see the people and the fans. And when I say fans, like, it's weird for me to say I have fans because I consider everybody my friend or my follower, but like, people wanted to meet me and take pictures with me and buy me a drink. And I'm like, this is crazy, but it's awesome. And we have 38 live events this year, 38 drafts around the world. I mean, we're in Lithuania. Who the hell goes and does a live football event in Lithuania? But this is at least year two of a group of people out there that are amazing.
I'm hosting or coordinating the Houston draft this year. Last year, I participated in the draft. And then the year before that, we didn't have an official Houston draft. So almost everyone who was in the Houston, online draft decided to go down to a brewery. And we did about 4 or 5 of the rounds there drafting live unofficially. So, but I'm drafting in the Dallas draft. So I'll be driving up to Dallas from Houston with Casey Kasem and Bob Harris, and excited about that. You're right. It's fun to be in the Scott Fish Bowl, obviously, and it's also an important, charitable activity. But also, you get to meet so many cool people, and you get a chance to see that, whether you're the top analyst like a Sal, or if you're just a Joe walking in off the street like me. Everybody is so welcoming and so supportive of each other, and that's what makes Scott Fish Bowl that more special, because Scott fosters that as well. and everything he does. You mentioned you're going to be doing drafting in New York, or are you going to be drafting in Las Vegas? Because I think you mentioned both places.
Yeah, so I'm not going to draft live this year actually at all. I'm attending events, but I did live drafts the last 2 years in New York, and partially because I want to meet people and be out there. It's sitting at the table for that long of a period of time. And by the way, Joe, I appreciate the conversations with you as well and everybody. Being a New York guy going to Boston, I was made to feel real welcome. Honestly, I don't, unless it's the Red Sox, I don't have any other animosity against Boston. I wasn't even. I'm not even that big of a Knicks fan at all, so it wasn't like I was rooting for them there either. So anyway, I wanted to give other people, as many people, an opportunity to draft live as possible. So I figured, let me take myself out of that and go to the events and meet people and observe. Because for me, the observing of what's going on and participating in all the surrounding stuff, it fuels me. And last year when I did go to Boston, and Joe might remember this, they had what was basically a silent auction of stuff, and listen, people were bidding, but we felt like it could go for more money. And Scott said, Sal, go grab the microphone and see if we could run the prices up on some of these things. Well, I mean, in about 30 minutes, I created this fervor in the room. We got an autographed Scott Fish Bowl mini helmet to go for nearly $500. And there was two people. There was two people battling back and forth. So what we eventually did was tell them if they both donated, they'd both get a helmet, and they would both get a place in next year's Scott Fish Bowl, which they were happy to do. So Scott said, well, you're going on the road next year, which, by the way, I wouldn't argue with. He's like, because if you could do that in as many cities as possible and raise as much money as possible for the Scott Fish Bowl, for the fantasy cares rather, that's what it's all about. And so I was like, Scott, give me the list of locations and I'll pick them. So this year I'll be in Vegas. I will be in Chicago, which is where FSGA is happening this year, which is kind of going to be the gala, I believe. They kind of do the gala now in whatever city FSGA is going to be in. So that's the weekend after this, the 29th. Then I'll be at the New York City, which is July 19th. And I think I'm going to be jumping in a car with Russ Fisher and Scott the following day to go to Philadelphia.
Nice.
And if there's anything I could fill in between, I'm going to do that. So here's an interesting thing that goes on in the New York Live Draft now. My son is 23. He'll be 24 in July, and he's played fantasy football, obviously, since he's a child. And he's still a child. But he drafts live in New York City now. So people thought they were drafted against me last year. And I'm like, oh, no, you're drafted against the better Sal Leto, as he used to be called on the podcast. My co-podcasters would refer to him as the better Sal Leto, and I tell him, you don't even know my father, who's also Sal Leto, so you're insulting him as well. So he's into it now, and he's going to get to meet Scott this year for the first time. Scott's coming to New York City, and it's just like passing on that generation, and he gets to see the stuff that we're doing. And if I could do anything for my children is show them that side of giving, show them that side of, hey, if you don't have a ton of money to donate, you could donate of yourself. You could donate of your time. And that leads me back to the shopping, right? That first year that I got to go with my kids and see their faces. And then they started to bring, that's my son and I. And that's a great story that somebody wrote about me here on a local Long Island website called The Patch. I think they might have those around the country, but that's me giving them a big old kiss there. And I love my kids. I'm not afraid to show my affection and my love for them. They're my world. I have two girls and a boy. He's in the middle. He's so much like his father. It makes me nauseous. But as they got older,
it's a great picture. That's one of the reasons why I found it when I was trying to do some research, and it shows everything that's good about Scott Fish Bowl and your involvement in it. It's showing family. It's showing giving, and the joy that people can get from giving, and the fact that you're able to share that with your son is such a cool thing. So I hope it was okay to dig that out and pop it up on the screen, because it really made me feel good seeing that.
in life in general, Rick, I'm a very open guy. Like I was, you and I were chatting before we got on here. I married my high school sweetheart, and we were married a good long time, and we had 3 wonderful kids, and my marriage ended, and that's life. She's a good woman. She's a good mother. I never speak ill of her. She's the mother of my children, so I didn't get to be as close with them. I wasn't there on Christmas mornings as they got older. But as they got older, it became less about Christmas morning because they were older and they wanted bigger things and more expensive things. And I'm not trying to ruin any surprises about Christmas. They didn't necessarily believe anymore. So sharing this with them became like my Christmas morning, like going and their faces. And one thing that spun off of it, two things really. They would bring their friends. My son got to college. He became the president of his fraternity. His fraternity brothers would come, and the sistering sorority would come. And if you go back and look at my social medias, and it's Sal Leto, SALLETO FF on Twitter, and an extra F on Instagram because somebody somehow had it. You could see the pictures from years past. One year I had this idea. It might have been the COVID year because I remember people wearing masks. We would see other kids shopping in the store, and I would never approach a child. I would go to their parents, and I would say, "Hey," I would explain what we're doing. Would your son or daughter like to pick out a toy for a child their age that they think a child their age who's not going to get that this Christmas would really want? Go pick it out. We're going to pay for it. They could put it in the cart, and they could get into the feeling of that giving as well.
Great.
And that's my son has spoken about that in places, and that's touched me that he's picked up on that, because he was on podcasts with friends in college and in health and wellness stuff, and they talked about that, and I was like moved to tears about that because that's the example we need to set, right? We're not always perfect. We're imperfect humans. I am an imperfect human, and I accept it every single day. But if I could pass on the goodness that I do know I have inside me, that's my legacy. That's my legacy. So it really does mean so much to me.
Well, and again, I think one of the things that as someone who's played and followed Scott Fish Bowl for many years, one of the best times of year are all those photographs that people share when they're shopping. A lot of the coordinators and organizers get to bring their family with them while they're shopping through Target and other stores to be able to buy toys for deserving kids who, as you mentioned, would not otherwise be able to have that sort of a Christmas. And it just it really warms your heart when you see how impactful Scott Fish Bowl is with not just and they are large numbers. I think the goal this year is like 500,000, which is an incredible amount when you think it's all built around a game that's a number of us like to play, and we try to compete, but it really shows that when you kind of put your head down and start thinking about ways that you can give back to the broader community around us, it's really a good thing.
If they would have let me pick the number, I would have went higher because we cleared 500,000 last year. We cleared it. So why go back for what we already did, right? Let's go for $1 million, and we'll get there someday. Maybe it's not this year, but because this is growing. I mean, to think about that, it's kind of in its infancy as a 501c3 charity, and back in the day when John Bosch started the Eliminators, and give John Bosch credit because that is a money raising cash cow, so to speak, for Fantasy Cares, and Alan Hepp has taken that over as we've all gotten increasingly busy. We used to collect the money in ways that it was grueling, and we would have to hold on to it, and we'd be like, Scott making a 501c3, and it just grew so big. And I will say this: if you don't know the name Bob Gilchrist, and I was talking to Bob right before I came here, because right over here to my left are two things I got in the mail today from Bob that I cannot show you, because they're going to reveal it tomorrow. And so pay attention to all the while I'm here, pay attention to all the Fantasy Cares social media. So fantasycares.org are the social media names out there, but fantasycares.org or fantasycares.com both go to the same place. the YouTube page where they do live shows and give stuff away every day. Pay attention to those things, because tomorrow they're going to reveal something that's going to be up for auction at every single live event, and they're tremendous. And there's going to be new shirts that drop not too long after that tomorrow. You've got to pay attention every day. There's new things, glassware, stuff, awesome stuff.
I just got the box sent. It just arrived today. So yeah, it was like Christmas opening up and seeing all the cool things. And I'd love to be able to share to the really cool things, but I can't.
One thing I learned was ask Bob permission first. And I want to get back to Bob just before we move forward. Is find Bob on social media, and it's Bob Gilchrist, exactly how Bob Gilchrist should be spelled. He doesn't have enough followers, and there are so many tremendous people, Russ Fisher, Joey, Zach Reed, who are doing yeoman's work for Fantasy Cares. But Bob Gilchrist is the backbone of what is being done year-round, going out to places, getting things done, organizing everything. For me, there's nobody more important to what Fantasy Cares does outside of Scott than Bob Gilchrist. So he begged me. He gave me money to say this. So no, I'm just kidding. Follow him. He's an unbelievable human being, and a great father and husband as well, as I've gotten to know him.
You know, for those who watch the podcast that they do a lot of times on Wednesday nights, but Bob is seems the quiet and
so
unassuming, and doesn't like to draw attention to himself. But the whole team is just. Each one of them is wonderful, and why Scott Fish Bowl is so successful.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Bob's got the personality of a rock, but he's a great human. And I say that because I love the man. He knows I'm kidding if he ever sees this.
Well, can we talk a little bit more about the Podathon? I know that you mentioned that you have someone that tended to book the talent, and as someone who schedules as part of my my non-fantasy football, side of my life, where it's juggling schedules and aligning personalities. That must just be a huge undertaking for 2 days straight of so many talented people. But can you talk through kind of the process? How, in fact, if you could start at the how does this all start? Like, when do you start planning? When do you start, reaching out to people? Or are people all contacting you? You don't have to reach out at this point.
Yeah, it's a little column A, column B, right? And while we're here, we decided to go back to 24 hours this year.
Okay.
So the show's going to be exactly how it was in year one, which it started at noon on Sunday, 4th of July weekend. So July 6th this year, we start at noon in the Eastern time. That's where I live. So we go noon East. And we're going to go to Monday the 7th at noon as well. And the reason we used to do it that way was it would lead right into the drafts. I believe the drafts used to be 11 a.m. So we'd be live for the first hour of the Scott Fish Bowl drafts, back when that was the only way to get your Scott Fish Bowl up to the minute news. We're going to do that again this year, because I think with the live drafts, it's not taken away from the Podathon, but you're getting so much more out there now that the 24 hours we felt was a little bit more of a neat and tidy show. When do we start?
30-minute episodes or 30-minute segments?
Yeah, it'll be 30 minutes. Maybe we'll book two people together that normally wouldn't be together for the 30 minutes this year to get more people on. Here's what I'll tell you. In the early days, I would do every single ounce of this by myself. Steve and Kevin would co-host with me, and this is just factual. I booked the guest. I did the links. I sent out the links to everybody. I booked these sponsors. I would bring the guest on while I was hosting. It was insanity. I'm crazy enough where I could get it done. And when I started getting help, I became a little bit more lackadaisical with her. I'm like, I don't got to worry about this anymore. So here's what I tell you. We're booking right now. People have reached out to me. People have come to know that Mike is the guy who books now. So they do reach out more to Mike than they do to me for booking. And Mike, another guy, I love him to death. He's a Boston guy. So we have we do have that little rivalry there, two alpha Ishmaels that go back and forth with each other. I couldn't do what I do right now without him booking the guest, and we're just really starting to get underway. And it's only about 2+ weeks away, but it's become such a big thing. It's not a problem. We will book 48 30-minute guests in a blink, and we do have a title sponsor that came on this year. I'm not releasing any of that yet till they do it on the YouTube and all that stuff, but it's going to be a great 24 hours. In the early days, I used to be on for 24 hours straight. When we went to 36, as I said earlier, I couldn't do that. I am going to try to do the 24 hours again. I am 8 years older than when we started that. I am a 50-year-old man now. Thank you, JJ. Another great guy I got to meet last year as well, and I think we spent some time at the expo, and maybe one other place, JJ. But and by the way, go to the expo. I don't know, Rick, have you've been to the expo?
This will be my first time going to
good.
Canada, so I'm excited and really looking forward to meeting people. I'll probably try to at least sit in on a session or two so I could learn a little bit more of the mechanics. But I'm really just looking forward to meeting all the different people. And so you'll be there, I'm guessing, is the obvious answer to my question. So
it took me 5 years to get there. Last year was my first time going. It just didn't. I had a vacation I took that same time every year, and now I decided to split the vacation in two, and I spent half of it there. And I went last year, and I'll go back every single opportunity I get. And we could touch a little more on the expo in a second, because I think that was kind of born out of some of the stuff we do at Scott Fish Bowl as well. That's not to discredit Bob Long and what he does, which is, by the way, put on a top-notch event. We'll get to that in a second. So in those early days I did that, and people came on board to help. And back in the day, I said, I'm kind of funny. I'm not a great analyst. I've been playing fantasy football for a long time, but I can talk fantasy football with the best of them. I wrote the shtick was staying awake, so I want to see if I can do it again, because it has been quite some time since I've done it. It's been 4 years. I think we did the first 4 years 24 hours, and then the last 36 hours. And if I can, I have a bunch of great people. JB, Jared Barry, who you may remember, he helps host. Zach Reed will be helping to host. I think my old co-host Steve is going to be back. Jorge from Fantasy and Frames helps out on the overnights. We got a great group of people. It's going to be like the old times, and I think it'll be just kind of like a crazy manic 24 hours, and I'm looking forward to it.
And I know that you're just starting to book, and so we won't ask any questions like who's going to be on this year. But stay tuned, and they'll be announced, I guess, as you get closer to the event.
Yeah, so follow all the social medias for Fantasy Cares, as I mentioned, but also SFB Podathon, which I have the access to on both. I'm going to call it Twitter and go like this, and Blue Sky. But for some reason, I can't seem to toggle back and forth on Blue Sky the same way I can on Twitter. So right now I'm having trouble accessing the SFB Podathon. But I did grab it the day, when the migration happened, half a year ago or so back, when we all migrated over there in that seemingly 1 week. It just
Will you also be on Discord, since I know that a lot of the Scott Fish Bowl has kind of migrated that way as well? Are you going to be on Discord as well?
Information on there as well, and in the open forum chats that are on Discord as well. And that's another place. I'm glad you brought that up, because if you're in the Scott Fish Bowl, and I think even if you're not, you could get access to those forums and those chats, and there's a ton of information. They have the what used to be on Twitter, the draft position chats. They have the league chats. Everything is there. I mean, there's so many men and women, people in general, just working on these things on their own time. I mean, it's what a wonderful group of humans that have gotten together to build this to what it is as a voluntary thing.
And, again, we're excited because, I mean, I have to admit, when, I get to watch the Podathon, I know that we're right there ready for the drafts to start. So it's like that's kind of like the key message that we're ready to start rolling on the drafts. But so we'll be looking forward to again. Can you hit the dates on that again?
Yeah, we're going to start July 6th at noon in the East, and we're going to go to July 7th at noon in the East. 24 hours, nonstop. I'm sure the old staples will be there. We've had Matthew Berry every year. We've had Mike Wright every year, Matt Harmon, and we've expanded to more people over the years, and they're always willing. Matthew Berry generally interrupts his family's vacation every year to come on. He is in some vacation home somewhere, hiding from his daughters. And that just goes, he's the biggest guy in the industry. And it shows you where he's at. He stays grounded. He's level-headed. I do consider him a friend. He's a guy who I've had the opportunity to meet many times and chat with along the way, and I can't thank him enough for his friendship. Mike Wright as well, I've met a handful of times. And Matt Harmon, I've gotten to meet a handful of times. It's just great people, and I'm looking forward to meeting more of them. I've known Liz Loza now for like 10 years and never met her in person, but I understand she's going to be in Vegas this week. So that's the greatness of these events. Going to these live events, you see the people that you're watching on ESPN or NBC Sports, and they're regular people.
Well, and one of the things I'm kind of hoping to use this platform as a way to encourage not only people to participate in, donating or giving, their money, but also, perhaps even starting their own charity event or charity league. And how would you encourage people, or would you encourage people to do that? And if so, how would you encourage them to get involved or get more involved?
Yeah, I would encourage everybody to do something charitable. It does not have to be Fancy Cares. We'd love to get every donation possible, but we don't need the attention. It's not about attention for us. It's about, is charity being done somewhere for somebody? I mentioned it before. Scott's original message 10 years ago, 11 years ago, I think it's 11 years ago now, when I met him, was make a charitable donation through your league. It's very simple. Pick any, if you have 12 people paying $100 to get in the league, are you going to miss that $100 in a payout? No. Take it and find somewhere to send it. Or, any other, send it to Fantasy Cares. We'd be happy to take it. Over the years, we've seen so many other things grow. And I got to touch on this because we lost another great man in Anthony Servino.
Yes.
Like 2 weeks ago. I had met Anthony in person. Anthony is in New Jersey, so not far from me. And him and Mike Hoff, Mike lived in my town before I moved to Brooklyn. I knew Mike really well. They created the mental health podathon that ran for a few years. And it is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And I'm a real big advocate for mental health awareness. I've gone to therapy in my lifetime. Greatest decision I waited too long to make. So I'm an advocate for these things. And those guys did a tremendous job raising money for Hayden Hurst's charity back then. And I wanted to mention Anthony. I'll mention Anthony every opportunity I can at every live event I can, because a great husband and father and a good man in his community who's gone entirely too soon. He was in his 40s and just in a blink, he's gone. So the community stepped up and gave so much money to the GoFundMe for him and his family. And it's amazing to see that. So we have to do these things. We have to do these things for the others in the community. We have to do these things for people outside the community. How do you go about it? Initiative. Just do it. In year one, we started out, like I said, we raised $4,700. We stayed awake like a couple of morons for 24 hours. We begged people to come on. Some of the people nobody ever knew. But just do it. It will grow. It'll start. You may do one 12-person league this year, and everybody who donates their $50 goes to the charity. And next year it might catch on, and you expand it to 2 leagues and whatever. And the satellite leagues that have been born out of Scott Fish Bowl, it's like a living, breathing thing now. Just do something. Get your kids involved if you have kids. Get your community involved, and do it for your community. It doesn't have to be on social media. It doesn't have to be in people's faces. We'd be happy to support it if you put it out there and you tag us. go do stuff in your community. I mean, I don't think it's lost on anybody that it takes a village, right? We're in extremely tough political times around not just this country but the world. We need goodness in this world. We need to feel good. So go do good things and feel good about yourself. It doesn't even matter how much money you're raising. Do something, change somebody's life in any kind of way, touch them for a day, but also wait to see what it does internally for you, because it's an amazing feeling.
Yes, and in fact, I've had a chance to talk with people doing, all sorts of different things, from the Beast in Memory Cafe in England to things that were large and very recognizable. But what I found, at least the common thread through all the people doing this sort of thing, is that they're connecting to something that impacts or means something to them, and because of that, it draws more people towards the charity or the charity event. And so the fact that you've invested a lot of your personal energies and time to this great charity event, and Fantasy Cares has benefited from all the stuff that you've done. And as someone who's watched from the sidelines, I just want to applaud the work you've done, and looking forward to bigger and more as we go forward. And I'm really excited about the upcoming Podathon. I'm going to be staying up all night along with the rest of us to enjoy hearing from so many great people in our fantasy community. But really wanted to thank you especially for coming on, sharing your story, sharing information about the Podathon and the Scott Fish Bowl overall. I mean, it's just been it's just a great experience. Thank you for everything you've done. Wanted to also, before we do that, why don't you go ahead and let us know how people can get a hold of you or get a hold of more information about the Podathon as it's coming up.
Yeah, so like I said, my socials, my Blue Sky and my Twitter or X are SALLETOFF, as you see on the screen right there. That is my Twitter handle, and Instagram is just one more F, and that's where you'll catch me doing the drinking winks a lot. And again, all Fantasy Cares org on there, the YouTube page for Fantasy Cares. All the information is coming out every day. Appearances, guests, lives. We'll be doing. There's been talk about us doing a red carpet live in Vegas this weekend. I might be interviewing people as they're coming in. Still a little bit up in the air, but maybe live streams at the live events. Yeah, just follow everything that's going on with Fantasy Cares. It's all out there. You'll see it across many platforms.
Awesome. Great. And people in the audience, if you are either doing or you are associated with a charity league or charity event, and you'd like to come on to a future Give Back show, please reach out to me. My Twitter X account is right there, and love to be able to bring you on and raise awareness to what you're doing. Next Tuesday night, my guest is going to be folks from the Rule of the Jungle podcast to talk about the charity work that they're doing. So please come back for that. And in the meantime, remember to be good, do good, and always look for an opportunity to give back. Thanks again, Sal. It's great having you as a guest.
Thank you.